Greetings of the day from Symbiosis International University. I'm privileged to be the host for today's podcast. I, Jyoti Chandiramani, Director of Symbiosis School of Economics and Dean Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, is very happy to host the 6th edition of SymbiCare Dialogues, titled India's Climate Change, Environment and Women, Rethinking Sustainability. Today's podcast features a very special guest, Vandana Chavan. She's been mayor of Pune, has been two-time elected Rajya Sabha member, senior parliamentarian, and her tenure in parliament provided her with an opportunity to be a part of certain committees related to science and technology, the empowerment of women, environment and forest. Welcome, Vandana ji, to today's podcast. So, Vandana ji, coming to the big picture, we live in a VUCA world, a world filled with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, mysteria that we see, where we don't know what's coming next to us. Do you think we seem to have pushed climate change, environment, and sustainability on the back burner? India ranked 176 out of 180 countries in 2024 on the Environmental Performance Index. On the climate change front, India ranks among the top 10 most vulnerable countries globally due to extreme weather conditions. In 2025, we faced 331 days of climate stress. It seems that climate change and sustainability are now a part of our regular vocabulary, everyday jargon. Since you have worked at the intersection of cities, environment, and policy for decades, when you hear these words as on today, what do they mean to you?
First of all, Jyoti ji, thank you so much for inviting me for this podcast on a very, very important topic. And when you ask me and run me through my entire career in political life and policy, I remember the days when I used to talk about environment, and some of my senior colleagues in the municipal corporation would come and tell me, "Oh, this is something which is fashionable. This is hi-fi, and it really doesn't relate to people." So it's not a hi-fi or fashionable word, or neither it is that it's not nothing that impacts the poor. It is they who are the most vulnerable, and today you see that they are the most vulnerable. So for me, climate change and sustainability are actually two sides of the same coin, because we can see the carbon dioxide, the carbon ppms increasing day in, day out, and along with that, the temperature. So it is real, it is urgent, it is amply proved that it is anthropogenic, it is because of your and my lifestyle. It is already reshaping our lives, and ignoring it is no more an option. Sustainability is the only and only way forward. So basically, we realize that these are challenges which face the very existence of humankind. And therefore, now we will have to think, rethink, and rethink the way we live, produce, and grow, so that we do not pass today's crisis to the next generations. As Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, there is enough for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. I think that idea, according to me, sits at the very heart of sustainability today. And therefore, climate change and sustainability are very much two sides of the same coin. If we have to address climate change, we have to talk about sustainability, and not just talk about it, live it, act upon it.
In fact, you rightly said it, that we have to really act upon it. So does this really worry you? And do you have hope, in this given context? We are talking about the broader picture right now, because the discussions on this go back from 1972, when the UN conference, on the human environment in Stockholm, had taken place.
Yeah, Jyotiji, very honestly, you talked about the Rio Conference 1972, then 1992, the Rio Conference in 1982, earlier the Stockholm Conference, and after that, so many other international conferences, the latest, the Paris Agreement, after that, the COP conferences. After seeing all this, it's not just worry. I sometimes get sleepless nights when I think that we are not doing enough. We need to do much more. Uh, as far as India is concerned, I think we are doing a great job on renewable energy. But when we see some policy frameworks that give priority to GDP growth without factoring in the ecological costs, we ignore carrying capacities and intergenerational equity. It worries me. Even the dilution of environmental clearances come to our cities. We have car centric urban development happening, and so many other things. You realize that we are not doing enough. Secondly, what I feel is awareness is very much lacking. If we can see these climate events happening, then why are they happening? What is it that we need to do has not yet percolated amongst the citizens. Because every citizen needs to take action to make sure that he or she reduces her carbon footprint. The third thing I'm a little worried about, that when we have heat waves, when we have torrential rains, when we have floods, which are all impacts of climate change, we tend to feel that this is now the new normal. This is what is going to happen. Unfortunately, we don't understand that this is only today. This is going to worsen day by day, year by year. And if we do not want it to worsen, we cannot let it happen business as usual. We will have to work in that direction where governments take proper sustainability measures, corporates take sustainability measures, and as individuals, we take sustainability measures. And therefore, this is something I feel very strongly that the awareness on this is very much lacking. Well, the third thing I feel that people are very disconnected with the policies, the legislations, or the programs which the government takes up. It normally happens at the national level. The top down and technocratic kind of approach to climate change and sustainability issues, I think there is a strong disconnect between from the ground realities. Uh, well, and I can list out many more, but these are things which worry me. The
No.
hope is that I see lot of engagement amongst young people. We work in schools. My
Yes.
NGO, which is called Alert, we have called the program Pune Climate Warriors.
Yes.
We have reached out to 100 schools, and it's amazing the way the teachers, the principals, and the children are responding to this program. It's not a government program, it's not a program which is mandated, but just the feeling that we need to do something about this issue, and here is an organization doing something, is absolutely amazing. So, that is something, the engagement of young people is something which gives us great hope. Local innovations where young children, youngsters, boys and girls are getting into innovating technologies which address sustainability issues. There are many Greta Thunbergs coming up. And last but not the least, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development
Okay.
Goals of the United Nations, which set goals and targets for governments and the communities to take this forward. So yes, there is hope, but we all need to put our heads together to make changes happen.
But I'm going to go a little back, and ask you a question here that, the last year saw almost 331 days out of 334 days were climate stressed days. And they impact rural and urban in a different way. Could you just demystify this to share with our audiences, on how this can, how this is different for rural areas and urban areas?
But now we see that it shows up at every step in our daily lives. Even whether it's urban or rural, what we breathe, what we eat, um, how we how we work, how we commute, how we live each day is something which is totally now reshaping because of climate change issues. And I think some of them are very common, whether it's urban or rural. Uh, for example, impacts on health, the heat stress, whether it's rural or urban, more so in urban areas, the heat stress is tremendous. And you and me can go and sit in our offices or sit at home in air conditioners. But how about the poor? I have seen that even the urban poor, or even for that matter in the rural areas, people who are staying in tin huts or stray huts, straw huts, they are all very seriously affected by heat stress. And you can see so many deaths related to heat waves. Um, I was told by somebody who had done a study in the city that in the bastis that we have in Pune itself, we have almost 40% of our population living in slums, and they live in tin huts. And they heat up to such a level that they almost become like ovens. And it's the men who can go out and sleep, or the men who go out and work. About for the women, because of social norms, they have to sleep in that oven even if it is at night and it is very hot. So health heat stress is tremendous, whether it's rural or urban. A spread of disease after a torrential rain, it could be in a city, it could be in a rural area. Disease spreads and they have to face it. Poor air quality, especially in the urban areas, is something which is very, very serious. In Delhi, we see that schools are closed, or even
Closed.
I remember when we used to have the parliament session, we used to wonder whether the session will happen or not, especially the winter session. Will it happen or not? Pune is not very far from Delhi in the sense in air quality index, not distance wise. But that is where cities are going to. If you see the 50 most polluted cities in the world, 40 are in India.
In
This is
India.
something which is very serious. Another thing is disruption of food and water, a changed crop cycle, water shortages, groundwater depletion, crop losses, especially in rural areas, the interference with work and livelihood. This is again something which hits the rural area more. If there is a loss of crop, then there is loss of work, and then it results into migration. Strain on mental health, mental well-being is something also very, very important. Again, rural or urban, it just hits us all. Climate anxiety and stress is something which is becoming more and more serious. So climate change is not a distant crisis now. It's reshaping work patterns, health outcomes, and household economics also, which is very important for each one of us.
So we find that there is a high gender lens to climate change. Women seem to be differently impacted and more impacted. Could you throw light on some aspects of this?
Absolutely right. It's a yes to globally and nationally. It is recognized that climate change has gendered impacts. We all see it visible also on the ground. Your question whether it is translating into real action, the answer unfortunately would be no, not much. Um, well, we have to all realize that women carry responsibility and challenges which are rooted and entrenched in long standing social norms, whether it's in the rural areas where water and fuel responsibility becomes a woman's forte. Her labor intensifies when there's a water shortage or a forest degradation. So that is something which impacts a woman directly. They are already overworked women, and again I would say more so in rural areas. There is time poverty, so climate stress in fact increases unpaid care work. This also impacts their economic vulnerability. Again, health risks, like I said, indoor pollution, where they work on chulas, there's heat stress, sanitation insecurity, and limited decision making power. Yes, women are into decision making process, 50% at the local self government. But if you see, if there are policy decisions to be taken on land, water, or natural resources, unfortunately, women are kept out. The men feel that they can take the decision. So, this is actually where the women need to be very, very present and must be in the decision making process, because they are the ones who get impacted badly. And therefore, policy frameworks, you find that women or gender has been mentioned, but it is very weak. In reality, it doesn't happen.
Yes,
We
you
have
are right. Because, when we look at the Prime Minister's Ujjwala Yojana, the LPG connection that was given, and you find a lot of them, even when we do some field work, when we are in Pune, because at Symbiosis School of Economics, we ensure that our students go to the field, whether it's the rural areas, the villages, or, the slums of Pune, to understand exactly the livability conditions. Because development is at the heart of it all. We have seen that where toilets have been constructed under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, in rural areas, they're just locked up sometimes because there's no water. Then there is a cultural factor that who's going to clean up the toilets. And therefore, it's there on a checklist. Infrastructure is there, but infrastructure has not translated into health and sustainability that we would like it to be. And when we look at the LPG connections, there are homes with that, but yet wood fire is used to heat up water, maybe for the cost factor, etc. So yes, these are issues. There seems to be a gap in policy and reality, and that needs to be bridged. So you have talked about it in two ways: that women get empowered, one way. The other way is you've talked about the community warriors that you talked about, training young. Is there anything else you would like to add to this dimension?
You're right when you say that there's a tremendous gap between policy and reality. Access and adoption, as I would say, is often considered a behavioral failure or an implementation failure. But honestly, with my experience, I feel it's a design failure because I have myself when I go to the bastis, or more so when I took up a village for as an adopted village under the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, there were a lot of CSR funds coming into the village saying that we'll build toilets, and I was very keen that my village becomes 100% covered by toilets for every household. I remember I was in Delhi at Parliament, and when I got a call from the Gram Sevak saying that so many toilets are going to be built by such and such a company through their CSR funds, and we would like to, start off a groundbreaking ceremony when you come there. I said, no, just don't wait for this. This is our topmost priority, and just go ahead. When I went back to the village after a few days, when the construction of the toilets were over, you can't believe this, that the toilets were just 3 by 3. How does the door opened inside? So how does one get into the toilet, stand there? And then I myself demonstrated this by going to the toilet and closing the door. There was no light whatsoever. So poor ventilation, no light. I asked them, what about the water? No water they have to get from home. Now, how can this happen? This is totally a design failure. You have to make sure you have bigger toilets. You have to make sure there's proper ventilation, proper lighting. I don't expect that there'll be electric bulb. Ideally, there should be, but even if there is not in a village, at least proper ventilation for the woman to be able to see what is inside. That doesn't happen. Security is another major issue. So I feel all these things are not being considered while constructing toilets. And therefore, we see that the toilets, as you rightly said, are being used as dump rooms to keep their firewood or things like that. As far as the LPG, also the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana did bring clean cooking gas connections to millions of households, but there were access issues. There was no regular supply, long distance distributors, then the cost of refilling was too high, and there was total lack of sustained awareness, which is very important because till the ladies don't realize that this is impacting their health because of indoor pollution, they will not use that clean cooking gas. And therefore, a wrong kind of implementation really makes these wonderful programs a failure.
So in this, we have to identify what are the 2-3 shifts that you think India must make conceptually lead to the outcomes that we desire.
So first of all, I would say that behavioral change cannot be imposed, it must be enabled. And accordingly, policies should be made where making sustainable solutions economically attractive, giving incentives, ensuring infrastructure reliability, and using community for empowering women to take this forward. As far as institutional changes, I feel there are 3 shifts which need to be made. First is institutionalize gender in climate governance. We feel that women are there 50% reservation at local self-government, but none of the climate action plans, if at all there are, include women. And therefore, this is something that needs to be done. We need to compile data which talks about gender, how they are impacted. Women's representation and decision making is something important, and then the gender budgeting is very important. Every year, the municipal corporations are mandated to make environment status reports. Similarly, can we have women status reports where it also talks about how the policies have impacted gender. The second point I think is recognize and reduce the unpaid care for burden of women. This is another shift that India needs to make. Climate policy must integrate water scarcity, clean energy, public transportation, and child and senior citizen infrastructure. We talk about creches, but I personally always advocate that even senior citizens need care, and that's a burden on working women. So that's something which needs to be addressed. And the third thing I would say where India needs to shift its policy is localized climate action, because Agenda 21 at the Rio conference talked about thinking globally and acting locally. So, till we don't have local interventions, um, financial and technical capacity building, women groups who can become change makers and actually initiate movements where we address climate, I think that will really not see the light of the day as far as sustainability is concerned. And sustainability is an important aspect to address climate change.
So, as we conclude our conversation, one idea stays with me that sustainability will not be transformed only through grand summits, global treaties, or technological breakthroughs. We'll have to rethink sustainability, and you as rightly said, it'll have to be localized, local action for climate change, localizing of SDGs. It'll have to be reshaped through gender budgeting, through gender participation and community action, and even catch Young, your community warriors that you talked about. It has to begin with simple life for environment kind of lessons that, our Prime Minister had talked about, since the G20 had come in. Across India and globally, women have long been quiet managers of ecological balance within households and communities. What we once dismissed as mundane innovations, day-to-day, things that we do, have become the central focal of what we are, doing. And therefore, women well-being has to be really something that has to be at the core of it all. And thank you, Vandana ji, for reminding us that sustainability is not abstract, it is lived. Perhaps the future of environmental governance lies not only in policy reform, but in elevating everyday resilience into public strategy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.